Hello everybody and welcome to the Rule Bender. As always, I shall be your host, Ian Canfield. Now apparently I don't have to do my disclaimer because I tick on that little box saying this content is not for kids. But if you are, please, parental guidance is advised. Now where to start? We're going to talk about today is character creation. Something very close to my heart. Because remember, when you're writing a story, your story is only as good as the characters in it. Whenever you hear stories about Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing games in general, what you hear about is what the characters did in that event, what the characters achieved, things that they said, things that they done. So this is what we're going to talk about today: is creating a character, whether it be an NPC or a PC. So it's non-player character or player character. Non-player characters are characters in the story that a game master or a dungeon master has designed to have an interaction with the player characters. And now I am going to do a video on how to fill out a character sheet of the mechanics of building a character. So what I'd like you guys to do is comment on the video of what character you would like to see me make after I talk about the classes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, is the class system. More than races, because races when it comes to role-playing games is, well, it's pretty self-explanatory, whether you want to play as a dwarf, whether you want to play as an elf or an orc, those traits of those fantasy creatures. However, what we're going to talk today about is classes, the function of that character. So I've got my books to help me explain how things work. Now, with 5th edition, it's pretty easy. When you make a character, you choose a class, and then you get a starting package for that class to say exactly how it's done. This is where 3.5 differs a little. 3.5 rules for Dungeons & Dragons gives you a lot more options to customise your particular character. For example, rogues. Rogues are some of my favourite classes to have in games, mainly because they get so many skills and you can customise them in so many different ways. You choose where you put your skill points, whether you put them into sneak, lockpicking, or pickpocketing, sleight of hand skills like that. So you could create a rogue that's like really sneaky, but however they can't pickpocket. They don't have that sleight of hand to take that bit of gold out of coin purse. However, they have a really high bluff skill where they can just talk you out of your money. So that's the great thing about rogues, is the different roads that you can go down, your very own customisation of what you want your character to be good at. As well, what differs with 5th edition and 3.5 is 5th edition breaks skills down, condenses it. So you'll have perception check, which is listen, search and spot, or you'll have a strength check, which is swim and climb. I kind of disagree with that, because you don't need to be strong to be a good swimmer. You could be very nimble and that was make you a good swimmer based on your dexterity. So you get your main attributes, and that's the first thing when building a character, is your attributes, which are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Yeah, the 6 traits. Strength, self-explanatory, how tough, how much damage you can put out, how strong you are. Dexterity, all about how quick you are, how nimble. Constitution, how tough you are, how many blows you can take. So you could have somebody that's not strong but is very durable, can be thrown about and get back up without a problem. And then you have intelligence and wisdom. Now, intelligence is all about learning, about education, how quickly your brain processes information. Will, however, is willpower. What makes you overcome. So if there's a horror check, how scared you're going to be from that. How quickly you can deal with things, like your mental stability, really. And then charisma. Charisma is all about what other people perceive of you, how charismatic you are, and how you come across to other people. So, got my books with me. because to make this easy, I'm going to go in alphabetical order of the different classes which you can choose from and their functionality in the game, their role of what they play. So you get, in 3.5, you get your basic classes and your prestige classes. Prestige classes are add-ons, so you need to meet a certain criteria before you can take that on. So, for example, an assassin. So you'd start off as a rogue. You'd make sure you meet the prerequisites for assassin as you level up the character, which is another thing I'll talk about when it comes to the video of making a character. And I will talk you all through it, every single process of making a character and leveling it up. So please come back for that. Please comment to let me know what character you'd like me to make. But yes, so you can get a rogue, meets the prerequisites, and then they can decide to become like an assassin, which is a prestige class, which gives them those extra few abilities to really bring some oomph to the character. So, without further ado, let's have a look and we'll go down the list. So, the classes. First up, alphabetically, is the Barbarian. Now, barbarians are wild folk, you know, that live out in the wilderness, don't care for much, tend to be very neutral, and barbarians, they tend to enjoy wildlife. They're the kind of guy in real life that would own a cabin in the woods and spends more time there than in home and likes to hunt and be close to wilderness. That's what barbarian is. Their role essentially is the heavy hitter. They're very tough, very sturdy people. And they get an ability which is rage, where their intelligence lowers while they're in rage and their strength heightens, which allows them to deal more damage in combat. Every class has something they can bring to the table. There is no weak class or strong class. Every class brings something in. Next up is the Bard. Now, Bards are another one of my favourite characters because they really do have characteristics. Bards are travelling musicians that pick up a little bit of everything on their journeys. You know, they're a jack of all trades but master of none. You know, their functionality is all to do with charisma. They get to boost people's abilities while performing songs. So they'll play their instrument or they'll sing. And then when they're doing that, as long as they're doing that, they will add buffs. So they'll add those extra couple of bits of modifiers. So they'll give you additions to your attack rolls or to your skill checks, depending on what song they decide to sing. They can cast a few spells here and there, things that they've picked up. Magic in general, two different types of magic. There's divine magic and arcane. Arcane comes from learning, divine comes from the deity that the character worships and how close they are with their deity. But yeah, bards are fantastic, and they're known for seducing. That's a bit of a myth, okay? Yeah, they can put points into that if they choose, but what their real function is an ability called bardic knowledge. Because they travel about, because they've seen a lot of the world, is they get to roll a dice with their bardic knowledge, and to determine on how high the dice roll, there is a chart for it in the book, and determines how much they know about a situation. So they could get to a town, or they could be a particular person, and then they decide, I want to do some bardic knowledge on that, and to see how much I know. And then the DM would give them additional information, just to see how much they know. Also, one of my characters that I had in the past was this gypsy woman. Her bardic knowledge was tarot reading. So we had a deck of cards, and I would fudge the deck a bit to determine the outcome of what they got from the tarot reading, which is a really interesting mechanic, and that was another thing that we isn't really in the rules, but we bent a little because that's what this channel is all about. Next up is the Cleric. Now we're going to cover two classes here, which is the Cleric and the Paladin, and where they differ, because they are both religious fighters. So they're the kind of guys that kick ass for the Lord. You know, they're on a mission from God. So they both have a lot of functions. Paladins get more points when it comes to healing others. Clerics, on the other hand, get more spells. So they function with divine magic of boosting people, healing, and stuff like that. And they're both very good when it comes to dealing with undead creatures or the supernatural. But all in all, they're very heavy hitters. They can be hard to play because when you choose a religion, you have to play it a certain way depending on your alignment.